All right, so we're back again with the Q&A. This week, our question is going to be protein sources between off-season and contest prep, whether those really look different or what we utilize throughout the two of these in maximizing both off-season and prep.
Yeah, so the first thing, so really the differences between the two, the first thing that really stands out to me is appetite changes.
Yeah.
And also digestibility. So you're kind of jumping between two different things, but at least within the two, I would say appetite is a big factor, whether we're in a surplus or a deficit. So protein sources would definitely resort to more whole food sources into contest prep versus off season and trying to manage appetite. So that might be pulling out some of the whey shakes and adding in more solid chicken, beef, egg type meals. And of course, it's, the big thing that I would really drive is that it still comes down to total protein intake. So if I know people get concerned about removing maybe a whey after their post shake and limiting potential protein synthesis rates after training, but for the whole day, I think the protein intake is the big thing. So you could definitely sub out like your liquid meals into solid foods. I think that's one strategy for appetite, at least in contest prep. And that switches both for moving off season. If you're having a hard time and with solid meats, moving in using some whey shakes could be really beneficial.
I would agree 100% there. And I think another consideration to do is obviously the calorie difference between the two, right? So one thing I like to do for some of my off-season guys where food gets really high is not only the choice of liquids or wheys as protein sources, but more calorie dense versions of proteins, right? So your fattier cuts like salmons, and which there is some health considerations there with choosing some salmons as well, as far as fish oils, EPA, DHA, things like that. But choosing little fattier cuts of beef, so 93.7s, 90.10s, things like that, to allow fat to be driven up without probably too much extra serving sizes and the protein sources. We're also having a protein sparing effect with the higher calorie and carbohydrates amounts in the off season. So you probably get away with slightly lower protein sources in the off season.
I guess that would give the potential, right, for if you're using fattier cuts of meat, also maybe slowing down digestion too. It's kind of like the balance, right?
That's true.
But I don't think that factors in too much when you're not going to the extreme, right? Like we're not recommending like an 80-20 beef to someone.
No.
And I think within that for off season, if you are going to those like beef sources, like choosing a ground beef over like a sirloin might be a good option because it's already been pre-mechanically broken down. For one, it makes mastication, chewing, all that easier. Also, just having it pre-broken down, you have greater surface area for digestive enzymes to work on. So it's just going to digest faster than putting like a big drop of steak into your stomach. So that's one thing. And I do like using fish because fish just doesn't have a lot of connective tissue in it. And so it's going to digest a little bit faster and sit a little bit lighter in the stomach. And so that goes into off season too. Maybe if you've been using salmon, switching to like a steak, so you could use a similar fat content, but it's going to take a little bit longer to digest. That might be a consideration for going into prep.
Exactly. And so one thing that I think may be a little less bit disappointing to kind of hear is that the protein source, as long as it's of high quality amino acid profile, probably doesn't overly matter as long as it's within the calorie requirements of the plan and the meal itself within that plan. Now, I have seen some people comment on feeling a little bit watery with more processed-based proteins like your whey proteins, things like that. But I just don't see it. So I don't know if I buy into that too much. I'm more concerned with the quality of the amino acid profile and then hunger management and or digestibility as far as wanting to eat your meals in the off season.
Yeah, I think with the whey, that just comes down to maybe they have some, lactose sensitivity
Yep.
potentially, and or it's the quality of whey that they're even using. Maybe if they went to a better quality whey, they could be fine doing it. Um, and with that, I think digestibility then would come into it, outside of appetite control. Is maybe you get bloated and super gassy when you have whey. So that might be a consideration for both ways, like in prep or off season. If you're really bloated and gassy, it's going to decrease appetite and you won't be as hungry for your next meals. Also, you just having a distended abdomen all day long is not ideal for keeping the waist tight and keeping your transverse abdominis trained in the off season. And then going into prep, you also don't want to be bloated and distended because you're trying to practice posing, and also keep bowel function working properly, because that's going to slow down bowel function. And
Yeah.
towards the end of prep, you can have some issues as well. So, finding protein sources that do digest well is important. So whey can be a big issue. I've had a lot of people that have issues with egg white specifically.
Yeah. Eggs or
Um,
egg whites, more on the egg white side. I have some people that have issues with chicken. Like Emily, she's one of those. If she eats chicken for too long, she starts to have issues with that. She'll start to get IBS flare ups. So I write a lot of her diets with like shrimps and things like that. Some more uncommon ones you hear, but still fine, high quality protein sources, right? Um, and I think one thing is just make sure you're checking amino acid profiles, right? To make sure that you're getting sources. Most meat sources are going to be fine, but I know porks a lot of times can kind of have not the best profiles, but other than that, I'm pretty flexible. It's more diet adherence, total protein numbers, and client happiness as far as being able to want their diet.
Yeah, I think the shrimp's a really good option. I'll use that off season as well, because it just sits so much lighter as well. I've used scallops, kind of rare because they're pricey, but
Yeah.
they digest super easy and they're very light, and it's a lean protein source. I think that is one thing with either way, having good protein variation, in variety. For one, I think from an adherence standpoint, for a prep standpoint, it might be, preparation standpoint, it could be an issue having to prep a bunch of different foods. So that comes down to your lifestyle and what you can do. But I think having variety in your diet, whatever macro it may be, will build a good diet. So in off season, you have that flexibility. So use different protein sources and try some different things. Most people don't try shrimp in the off season, or maybe you want lobster for every meal. But yeah, try some different things to
Yeah.
have some variety built in, and stuff that you might not be able to have on prep to be able to use.
And if you got the cash, throw it down. There's some good cuts out there.
Yeah.
Like those tuna steaks. That's like a treat thing for me, but those things, I wish I could have those all the time.
Yeah, the tuna steaks are nice. It does like go right through you though.
Yeah.
So on prep, I wouldn't be using like
No,
some
but in
snake
all
tuna.
season, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and
But
same with like any of the sashimi type sushi cuts. Like off season, it's nice, easy way to put down a bunch of food. In prep though, yeah, raw fish just
just
is
not
not gonna
happening.
hold you well. So
So I think that's mainly the considerations that you need to have for protein sources. Variety, quality, and then adherence within your diet, whether that's, digestibility or anything along those lines. So that kind of covers it. Pretty easy concept to kind of apply. Choose the ones you like and or can afford, and pick maybe a few so that you have some variance through the day.